The front door of Golden Oak Library creaked open as Twilight took her first few steps into her home. Her horn lit up several lanterns placed all around it, lit up with the familiar, warm light that flooded the makeshift library and home. "I'm home," Twilight spoke to the empty house, knowing that there was no response in return. She stepped into the familiar confines and closed the door behind, hearing the quiet echo bounces off the walls. It had been a week since she saw the princess, and her recovery was finally to the point where they confided letting her head home. Her friends had been with her the entire time, but it was finally came to their enter her house. She asked for a moment alone, and they agreed. She walked over to the center of the room. The familiar table and horse statue had been sitting there, waiting like it had always been. A few scattered books lay on the table. One familiar caught her eye. Dreams, a psychological understanding. Twilight gritted her teeth at the book. Her first instinct was to set the book on fire, to burn it and try to wipe it from her memory. But she levitated up with her magic. Her next instinct was to throw it into it to see how much damage it could take. However, she did neither of those things, and she walked over to a nearby bookshelf, opened hidden compartment behind it, shoved it away, hiding it from view unless it was absolutely needed again. With the damnable book locked away, Twilight scanned the house once more. The rest of it was exactly how it had been before she went to bed right the night after the wedding. A small layer of dust had started to gather, but nothing but a light dusting couldn't handle. A light dusting Spike would usually take care of. A knot new form in her chest as she moved, making on her way up the stairs towards her bedroom. At the top of the stairs was a spacious area, accounted for not only the second floor of the library, but also her bedroom. To one side was a small closet of the space where she kept her belongings. Reaching into her magic, she pulled out the possession Celestia had given her, the regal black sword that once belonged to Merlin. She levitated into the space and then hung it against the wall, a location she would remember and summon it from the moment's notice if need be. But otherwise hidden from the world. She didn't even know if she was ever going to need to see the sword again. But Merlin's words came back to counter those thoughts. She had seen her as a savior of Equestria several times over. In the back of her mind, she knew that she was going to need it again someday. With a sigh, she turned to her closet and took one more flight of circular stairs that led up to a small balcony area on the same floor where Spike had spent so much of their time together. On the floor near her carpet was the small basket that he had slept in, left as messy as it would have been when they spoke up in that awful world. "Oh, Spike," Twilight murmured quietly as she ran a hoof against his pillow. She hadn't realized how much she took of him having around for granted now. The place felt so empty, so quiet without him. She was going to sleep there and not have any rhythmic sounds of Spike snoring to help her fall asleep. Or know what if anything happens that could wake her up and she could protect him. She was alone now. Twilight felt her breathing hitch and she moved from her basket to lay on her bed. Maybe if she fell asleep this night might all go away. Maybe she'd wake up and life would go back to the way it was before everything happened. She just wanted one of her best friends back. Oof! Twilight grunted as she felt slightly heavy landed on her body. She let out a grunt as she shifted her head and looked down on what landed on her. Finding somewhat familiar, a book having made its way there, she raised an eyebrow curiously, before looking up and seeing the owl Obnoxious sitting above her, that ever-blinking stare of his. "Whoo!" the owl spoke up, as if speaking about the book. "What is this?" Twilight then asked curiously, knowing her pet owl couldn't give a proper response. She grabbed the book and opened the front page to read it. "The Private Diary of Spike the Dragon. Do not read unless you are the coolest dragon around." There was a quirky little doodle of a grinning dragon near at the bottom of the page. Oh, Owlnicious, I can't." Twilight then blinked the urge to break back into sobs. Her hoof was on the page. "Ooh," he responded, as if encouraging her. Twilight chewed on the bottom of her lip, fresh tears already starting to form at the edges of her eyes. Twilight rubbed her eyes and swallowed the knot that had formed, and hesitantly turned to the next page. "Dear Diary, I'm Spike. I'm a dragon. Pretty impressive, I know. I decided with how hectic my life is, can't get helping Twilight around her study would be a smart idea to start keeping this diary. You never know when you'll want to look back on some awesome memories, right? Anyways, this is my first entry. Let me know what you tell me something about something hilarious that happened today. Twilight was studying for one of her tests of her misspelt of the misfred, and her hair had turned and bright red. She then looked just like Moondancer. It was hilarious. Oh, I couldn't let her live that down easily, and crackled upon my awesome jokes. It was all good and fun, and I made it up to her by making her that daisy salad she likes so much. I can't wait to see how awesome it is until we have fun tomorrow. The Great Dragon Spike. Twilight let out a soft chuckle, followed by another. Her lips trembled as she laughed, hot tears spilling down her cheeks. She remembered that day. She remembered Spike's jokes. She remembered his laugh. She remembered how much fun she loved him, and how much he loved her. Oh, Spike, Twilight choked between her laughter and sobbing. I'll never forget you. She took a deep breath and reached for her hoof over and turned the next page. She spent the rest of her days slowly reading every page and remembering her lost son, Spike.